more than 1 billion tons of perfectly good food, ends up in the trash every single year. That number alone is hard to swallow. But what if I told you, in some corners of the world, people survive on that trash, literally? In the heart of Manila, the bustling capital of the Philippines, there's a place where hunger pushes the limits of what most of us could ever imagine. There, deep in the slums of a neighborhood called Tondo, families are digging through garbage bags, not for recyclables but for dinner. They call it Pagpag. You've probably never heard of it. Most haven't. But for thousands of people, it's not just a word, it's what keeps them alive. Pagpag isn't a brand or a recipe you'd find in a cookbook. It's leftover fried chicken, burger scraps, and fast food waste scraped off other people's plates, pulled out of trash bags, rinsed in water, doused with soy sauce or Sprite, and cooked again. Sounds shocking, doesn't it? But in Tondo, it's just another night around the dinner pot. So, why do they do it? Is it poverty, desperation, or something deeper? And could you do the same if your own children were hungry? This story is about more than food. It's about dignity, survival, and the haunting question, what would you do if trash was your only option? We stood quietly outside a Jollibee restaurant, one of the busiest fast food joints in all of Manila. The place was packed as always. Families laughing, couples chatting, kids running around. On the surface, it looked like any other evening in the city, but we weren't there for the fried chicken. We were watching the food. Plate after plate was carried to the tables, overflowing with crispy wings, spaghetti, and rice. But as the meals ended, something unsettling became clear. People weren't finishing their food, not even close. We walked from table to table after the customers had gone, and what we saw stuck with us. Half-eaten drumsticks, untouched pasta, whole slices of burger meat tossed aside like they meant nothing. To most folks, it's just leftovers. But to someone in Tondo, this could be dinner. A full meal, rescued from the edge of a trash can. The restaurant staff, moving quickly, gathered the discarded food into bins behind the counter. It was routine, nothing out of the ordinary. Then came the part most of the city never sees. As the lights of the restaurants dimmed and metal shutters came down for the night, we made our way to the alley behind the building. Midnight was approaching. The streets that had been alive just an hour earlier were now quiet, empty. We waited near the curb, under the yellow glow of a flickering streetlight. Before long, the garbage trucks began to arrive, one by one, collecting the day's waste. Inside those black plastic bags, kilos of fast food scraps, still edible and headed straight for the dump. But they wouldn't stay there long, because somewhere, just a few miles away, someone is waiting. Not for money, not for help, just for a chance to eat what someone else threw away. To most of us, leftover food is just trash, something we scrape off our plates and never think about again. But out here, in the back alleys of Manila, that trash can be the difference between another night of hunger and survival. As we watched the garbage trucks rolling through the city, we began to notice something else. On the sidewalks, near the curbs, lay bodies, some curled up under sheets of plastic, others barely clothed. These weren't just people down on their luck. These were the forgotten, the ones who drift through the city unseen, caught between hunger and addiction, cold, concrete, and fading hope. But we weren't just here to witness suffering. We came to follow the trucks, to go where the scraps go, and speak with the people who depend on this waste. People who gather what's still edible and transform it into something they call Pagpag. We headed to one of Manila's trash collection sites, just past midnight. The air was heavy, but still. At first glance, the place seemed quiet, calm even. But that calm was misleading. Locals warned us, be careful. Once the sun goes down in this part of Tondo, the rules change. The ground we were standing on wasn't just a dumping ground, it was dangerous territory. Some of the people wandering these piles weren't just looking for food. They were under the influence of shabu, a cheap and potent street drug made from methamphetamine and caffeine. It makes them restless, paranoid, and sometimes violent. We saw some of them, eyes darting, hands twitching, whispering to people who weren't there. Some clutching rusty syringes, others staggering in silence. These folks aren't just unpredictable, they're desperate. And desperation is a dangerous thing, so we kept our distance, choosing carefully whom to approach. The people here are on edge. Ask the wrong question, linger too long, and things can turn in a heartbeat. The trash itself was alive, with rats, stray dogs, and men digging side by side, all looking for something, anything. That's when we met two men, barefoot, covered in dirt, but sharp and focused. They explained how they sorted through each bag, pulling out not just food scraps but also plastic and metal to sell. They used knives and bits of wire to separate materials, careful not to slice their hands. One man, hands blackened from hours of digging, found a nearly untouched piece of chicken. Started eating right there in front of us, slowly, quietly. You could tell he was starving, but he wasn't frantic. He was focused, as if this moment of nourishment was sacred. Just the silent understanding that hunger doesn't wait for permission. They've learned what to collect and what to avoid. Any sealed package with air bubbles? That's a bad sign, spoiled. Those they feed to the pigs. Everything else? Fair game. Sometimes they find treasure, though not often, but it happens. A gold earring? A bit of loose cash? One man told us he once found 20,000 pesos, that's about $400. He smiled as he told the story, like it had happened yesterday. For a brief moment, he said, he could give his family a proper meal, buy medicine, pay rent, just for a while. As dawn approached, the men loaded up their bicycles with bags of sorted scraps and rode back toward the slums of Tondo. There, families were waking up, getting ready for a new day. And for some of them, that day begins with a hot plate of pagpag. Yes, this meal is made from trash. Yes, it's recycled food that others threw away. But for those who eat it, pagpag means more than just calories. It's a lifeline, a ritual, a daily reminder that even in the harshest conditions, people will do what they must to survive and to share what little they have. We followed them to their Shantytown, where corrugated metal and tarps form homes, and where smoke from wood fires fills the air. Today, we'll try pagpag, just like they do. And you can't understand the world they live in until you taste it for yourself. The moment you step into a shantytown in Manila, something grabs you. It isn't the noise or the chaos, it's the children. There are so many of them, everywhere you look. The Philippines is home to over 120 million people, and it's a young population. But here in the slums, these children aren't laughing on playgrounds or heading off to school. Most are barefoot, underweight, and wandering the narrow alleys with empty stomachs and even emptier futures. Many of their families send them into the wealthier parts of Manila to beg, not because they want to, but because they have to. The homes here, if you can call them that, are little more than patched-together shelters, 1 or 2 stories high, built from scrap wood and rusted metal. Most don't have windows. The roofs? Corrugated steel sheets held down by bricks or tires. When the rains come, and they do often, the water pours straight in. As you walk deeper into the neighborhood, you realize something else. It's a maze, a tight, tangled web of alleys and makeshift staircases. If you're not careful, you'll lose your way. These shacks are pressed so close together you can hear your neighbor breathe. From above, the contrast is stunning. Skyscrapers gleam in the distance, casting long shadows over the tin roofs of these slums. It's a tale of 2 cities, one rich and rising, the other struggling just to hold on. The wealthy rarely come here. They say it's unsafe, and maybe it is, but it's also very human. For the men here, work means sweat, carrying sacks at the docks, sorting through scrap metal under the blistering sun, hauling garbage for a few pesos a day. Their hands are rough, their backs bent, and their days long. There's no insurance, no weekends, just labor. But it's often the women whose stories cut deeper. With fewer options and mouths to feed, many end up in karaoke bars and roadside clubs scattered across Manila. These places are not just about singing or drinks. Behind the neon lights, young women, some barely out of their teens, serve as entertainers for men, most of whom are older and foreign. They smile, pour drinks, laugh on cue. But behind that smile is a quiet hope that maybe one day, someone, perhaps a retired foreigner, maybe an American, will see them, really see them, and offer a way out. It's not a fantasy born of laziness. It's a lifeline. For many of these women, a relationship with a foreign man is the only dream they can afford. Not because they're chasing riches, but because they're tired of surviving. They want safety, stability, a home where the roof doesn't leak and the future isn't so uncertain. It's a complicated truth, one born from poverty, but steeped in humanity. As we walked the streets, we saw yesterday's leftovers being sold at roadside stalls, bagged up cold, or reheated, and served steaming. Some vendors sell Pagpag right off the street. Others offer it chilled in plastic bags, ready to be taken home and cooked again. Electricity is scarce here. Many homes rely on portable lamps or candles. Wires dangle from poles like spaghetti, a dangerous mess of illegal hookups that would terrify any building inspector back in the States. The rooms inside are no bigger than closets, often serving double duty. A place to sleep is also a place to cook. We met one man, alone in a tiny shack. He invited us in, said his wife and daughter had left him long ago. Now he sleeps on an old sofa next to a single gas burner. He pays 2,000 pesos a month. That's about $35 for this room. That may sound cheap, but for someone with no stable income, it's everything. Manila's heat doesn't let up. It hovers in the 90s all year. In these cramped shanties, men and women often sleep half naked. It's the only way to get any rest. They shop at local kiosks, where goods are cheaper than supermarkets. Everywhere you look, there's clutter, wires above, trash below. The local government seems to ignore these areas. Maybe it's because the residents don't hold legal titles. Maybe it's easier to pretend they don't exist. Whatever the reason, there's little to no city maintenance here. Trash piles up. Open sewage runs along the streets. The stench lingers. Clotheslines stretch between rooftops. Wooden ladders lean against walls to reach upper floors. The smell of decay mixes with the scent of fried food from nearby stalls. And yet, through all of this, people smile. Filipinos, even in hardship, carry a warmth that's hard to explain. They laugh, they share, they survive. And maybe that's what stays with you most. Not just the poverty, but the resilience. Even the dogs, thin and weary, trot alongside their owners like loyal shadows. Life here is raw, unfiltered, but it goes on. And now, it's time to witness how that life, against all odds, turns trash into tradition. Next, we'll watch as Pagpag is prepared from scratch. Food that began in a dumpster will soon become a meal. In the heart of one of Manila's poorest neighborhoods, an elderly woman and her husband begin their mornings as they have for years, preparing Pagpag. The day before, they gathered scraps from the trash. Now, with care and routine born of survival, they sort through it once more. Each bag is emptied into a basin. With their bare hands, they rinse what others had thrown away. Chicken bones, half-eaten wings, cold spaghetti. They scrub it clean in hot water, once, twice, sometimes more. Not out of luxury, but necessity. Plastic wrappers, bits of foil, even a stray nail, these things hide in the mix. The water starts out clear, but by the second rinse, it turns gray. The woman nods quietly. This is just part of the process. Some of the chicken bears teeth marks. Still, it goes into the pot. What comes next is a mixture only they can perfect. Oil, soy sauce, a splash of Sprite, and monosodium glutamate, Mississippi G, the so-called flavor enhancer used in countless fast food meals around the world. They say it brings out the taste. They say it makes people hungry. After 30 minutes of simmering, the food is ready. She ladles it into bowls, adds broth, and serves it to her neighbors. For those who want a crunchier option, she fries a few pieces in a separate pot and bags them up, just like the fried chicken at the big-name chains downtown. Only this version costs a fraction of the price. This, right here, is Pagpag in its truest form. And slowly they begin to arrive. Children, shirtless and barefoot. Fathers with worn-out plastic bags. Mothers clutching coins. They gather at her stall, not for charity, but to buy dinner. She once sold adobo, she tells us, but her customers couldn't afford it anymore. So she adapted. She started cooking Pagpag because people still needed to eat. They still needed something warm, something that felt like a real meal. Over time, it became part of daily life here. Here, it's what people can afford. A whole family of 5 can eat dinner for 50 pesos. That's just about $1. For many, it's the only full meal they'll have that day. She says it helps her too. The small income she makes from selling Pagpag goes toward electricity, water, rice. It keeps her afloat. She eats the same food she sells, because there's nothing else. And it's not always easy. She says sometimes you have to wait at the trash sites from noon just to get a few scraps. Other times, you show up and there's nothing left. That's how tight the line is between hunger and hope. Still, people smile. One man says, "It's delicious. I like it because it's clean and it fills me up." Another mother adds, "I always buy Pagpag so I can feed my children." Here in a city of 15 million, where nearly half the people live below the poverty line, Pagpag has become more than a meal. It's become a way to survive, a way to hold on. Even buffet restaurants have begun offering it in some form, cheap, filling, and popular. But through all of this, through the heat, the hunger, the makeshift kitchens, there's one thing that never fades: the smiles. Because even when everything else is broken, people still find a way to care for each other, to share what little they have, to keep going. And maybe that's what makes Pagpag more than just food from the trash. It's a symbol of resilience, a daily act of courage, a reminder that the human spirit, no matter how battered, still finds a way to rise. And then there's us. Watching from afar, it's easy to feel shocked, maybe even uncomfortable. But if we look closely, really look, we might realize there's something deeper here, something humbling. When we see a child eating Pagpag, when we witness families washing discarded food and turning it into dinner, we're not just seeing poverty, we're seeing resilience. We're seeing people make the best of what little life gives them. And in that moment, we're reminded of something we often forget: how much we have. In a world where over 800 million people go to bed hungry every night, where 30% of children under 5 in the Philippines are malnourished, having a hot meal on the table is not just normal, it's a gift. In Tondo, warm food is a luxury. And yet, look at their faces, the smiles, the laughter, the way they greet each day with open hearts, even when their stomachs are empty. What does that tell us? It tells us that happiness does not come from wealth, not from the square footage of a home, the shine of a wristwatch, or the badge on the front of a car. Happiness is quieter than that. It lives in the small, unspoken moments, in the strength to smile when life offers you little, in the grace to share what little you have, in the warmth of a meal, even if that meal was once tossed away by someone else. This is Manila. This is the Philippines. A place where joy is stitched into the rhythm of daily struggle. A place that teaches us that paradise is not perfect. Sometimes, paradise is a neighborhood that smells of smoke and sweat, where kids run barefoot through garbage-strewn alleys, where laughter echoes between rusted rooftops. And in that paradise, we find a truth that cuts across every culture, every income level, every generation. Happiness does not depend on what you hold in your hands. It depends on what you carry in your heart.